Hi, this is Red Means Recording, and I'm Cooler Jeremy. If you've been subscribed to this channel for any length of time, you probably know our human counterpart and I make music. That's kind of what this channel is about, making music and sharing the knowledge, passion, and fun that music making can bring us all. We've released a bunch of music over the years, mostly in various electronic genres, and finding a place to put it so other people could listen to it has always been a moving target. First it was MySpace, then SoundCloud, then we started a Bandcamp for our earlier releases, thinking that that would be all we would ever need. But when our channel started getting more popular, people started asking if our music would ever be available on streaming, and of course, the number one streaming platform people wanted it on was Spotify. We put our first album onto Spotify December 16th, 2016, and it felt really cool. It felt like we had achieved something, some form of legitimacy. People could and were streaming our music, and even crazier, we were actually getting a little money from it. The last album that we released on Spotify was called Determinism, and that was in February of 2024. At that point, we already had misgivings about the service. We'd never paid for Spotify as a listener, but we already knew some frustrating and, quite frankly, disturbing facts about the platform that had us wondering in the back of our minds if we wanted to continue to use the platform for hosting. But like probably a lot of musicians, we were worried that if we took our music down from there, people just wouldn't listen anymore. We had about 20,000 active listeners on Spotify per month, and we're making between $200 and $300 a month from streaming royalties. For us, Spotify was clearly the place where most of our listeners were, and where we were making the most from our music. Taking it down from the platform felt like an erasure that would be bad for our little baby music career. That was until July 2025. As of this month, we've taken all of our music down from Spotify. Now, as of the recording of this video, it's still available on pretty much every other platform, so check the links in the description if you want to find us wherever. That said, we want to tell you what led us to this decision and why we think continuing to use Spotify as a listener and a musician isn't worth the convenience, clout, or money that it provides. This is a video catalog of Spotify's sins, and especially the sins of its CEO, Daniel Ek. It's also a video about why, even though there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, that doesn't mean that we can't at least try to more ethically interface with the art that we love. All right, let's go. Spotify's origins. Spotify was founded by Daniel Ek and Martin Lorentzen in Stockholm, Sweden in 2006, and its legal music streaming service launched in October 2008. The idea for Spotify emerged around 2002 following the shutdown of peer-to-peer music services like Napster and the rise of illegal alternatives like Kazaa. Daniel Ek recognized that piracy couldn't be eliminated through legislation alone, and his solution was to create a service that was superior to piracy while simultaneously compensating the music industry, which is ironic as hell given their compensation strategy now. It wasn't the first streaming service. There was Rhapsody, which is now Napster, launched in 2001, Pandora Radio in 2005, SoundCloud and Bandcamp in 2007, and Last.fm in 2002. Of course, we also had the iTunes Store, launched in 2003, which was the dominant music purchase and download place for most people, I would imagine. Now, reading this list is like seriously nostalgic. Early SoundCloud was actually good, and we used to be super into scrobbling our plays onto Last.fm as a record of what we were into. Spotify's payouts and pro-rata system. Spotify's per-stream payout rates, the money an artist can earn every time someone streams one of their songs, are not fixed and have fluctuated over the years. Spotify doesn't actually pay out using a strict per-stream royalty system. They use something called a pro-rata system, which has no relation to our personal pro-rata system.
People are already lining up to Ratma the Hayride's Apple Ratma, and of course, to see who will be crowned the festival's largest Ratma.
Hail Ratma. The pro-rata system takes a percentage of the total revenue that Spotify makes via subscriptions and ads and pools it. Then it's distributed to rights holders like labels, publishers, and distributors based on what's called their stream share, which is the proportion of the total streams their music accrues. Artists then receive their shares from the rights holders according to their contracts. If you're an independent artist like me, then all you may be paying for is the distribution, like through DistroKid or something like that, and get the rest of your royalties just delivered straight to you, which isn't a bad way to be. The amount Spotify has paid per stream, big air quotes, has changed over the years. In the early years, it was around 0.006 to 0.0084 per stream. That is 0.006 of a dollar or 84 ten-thousandths of a dollar. God, that's even hard to say. In recent years, it's around 0.003 to 0.005 per stream, with some sources citing a worldwide average closer to that 0.003 of a dollar mark. On average, it would take around 2,500 streams on Spotify to match the amount of money an artist would make selling just one of their $10 albums on a place like Bandcamp or iTunes. And that is bad math. Oh my gosh, wait, my ears react? Holy shit, I did not know that. This is news. For a little bit more context, platforms like Apple Music and Tidal offer around a cent per stream, and Qobuz actually almost offers 2 cents per stream, which is wild in 2025. Now, to be fair, we didn't until recently know what a Qobuz was. It doesn't sound real, right? Like, it sounds like it could be literally anything, like a soda with little pellets in it, or a gum that makes you super horny, or some like weird fringe e-commerce website that exclusively deals in soda with little pellets in it and gum that makes you super horny, right? Policy changes and their impact. So Spotify pays the least amount in the industry per stream, but it gets worse. In April 2024, Spotify amended their policy and required that tracks reach a minimum of 1,000 streams annually before they qualify to receive any royalties. That means you could theoretically not make any money from people listening to your music. It also means that the proliferation of AI music on the platform takes streams away from legitimate musicians and their potential livelihood. We will talk a little bit more about AI music later. So here's another example of how this can play out when Spotify decides to make changes to their platform. There was a legal battle recently where the company successfully defended its practice of audiobook bundling. By integrating an audiobook service into its premium music subscription, Spotify was able to invoke a 2022 settlement with music publishers. This agreement permitted streaming services to reduce music subscription payments to the artists, when bundled with other services. Adding audiobooks dramatically increases the total volume of content minutes available on the platform. Since the finite pool of subscription revenue is divided on a per-stream basis across all content, the huge influx of audiobooks effectively dilutes the per-stream value for music artists. The Mechanical Licensing Collective, or MLC, a nonprofit agency, sued Spotify in May 2024. And although Spotify won the court case, the deal they signed afterwards with Universal Music Group reportedly improved some payment terms within the bundling agreement, which suggests that Spotify recognized a significant backlash its scheme generated. And that's a constant theme with this company. They scheme. They scheme to devalue music while extracting as much value for their shareholders as possible. Each action, whether directly reducing the per-stream value or making it harder for artists to qualify for payments, contributes to a systematic approach that extracts maximum value from the content creators while minimizing their share. And the execs are taking that to the bank. Daniel Ek, the CEO, and co-founder Martin Lorenston collectively cashed out over $932 million in Spotify stock in 2024, with Ek alone selling nearly $100 million in December 2024. We're going to talk a little bit more later about where little Daniel is investing his ill-gotten gains, because it ain't pretty. But for now, just remember that Spotify's goal as a company isn't to make it easier for you to share your music and have fans listen to it. Their goal is to maximize profit for shareholders and executives by creating the moist. Oh my God. I said moist. I was supposed to say most. I said moist. Let's do that again. Their goal is to maximize profit for shareholders and executives by creating the most exploitative system they can. We keep coming back to this absolute banger of a tweet from Daniel, where he claims the cost of creating is close to zero, and then some absolute nonsense about how most art is disposable, before jumping into some crap about stoicism and Marcus Aurelius. And we swear to God, this stuff is some kind of dog whistle for something, and we can't remember which fringe internet group is obsessed with Roman values and stoicism. If you remember, leave a comment, because it's driving me crazy. Either way, seriously, screw this guy. Daniel X Military Investments. Okay, so let's talk about where those Spotify big bucks are going. This was actually the thing that finally set us on the path to taking our music down, as San Francisco band Deerhoof made headlines announcing that they were taking their music off the platform after learning about Daniel X Military Investments. So what has little Dan been doing with his money, huh? Well, first off, the dude is worth $9.2 million. On that alone, we can assume he's extremely edible. Would we eat him? No, we're watching our figure. But someone could. Someone could absolutely eat Daniel Ek. Something to think about. Oh, I forgot I could do this. Ek has a venture capital firm called Prima Materia. Christ, what a pretentious name. Really hope we don't have any more pretentious or like scarily tone-deaf names for things in the rest of the script. Just cross your fingers we don't have to encounter that. Ek used a Prima Materia to invest $694 million in a company that develops AI technology for war drones, fighter jets, and real-time war surveillance. Let's see what this scary as heck war machine company is called. Oh, great. It's called Helsing. Of course, it's called fucking Helsing. Because of course it is. He invested in this company in 2021, just months before Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Weird. When the backlash occurred, X's response was, "We're sure people will criticize it, and that's okay. Personally, I'm not concerned about it." Of course, a multi-billionaire isn't concerned about what musicians and music lovers care about him, or care about, or anything. Of course, he wouldn't care about contributing to and making money off the military-industrial complex. I mean, why should he? Muse hasn't taken their music down off the platform, and they have an entire album about how drone warfare is bad. Though, honestly, I don't really know why I expect anything from Muse. I feel like someone should strap Matt Bellamy down to like stirrups and feed him like a heroic dose of acid and make him just stare at his own butthole for the duration of the trip so he can really contemplate like crawling up in it and living there, since he already acts like he does. And yes, that is the second vor joke you've gotten in this video. We've gotten oral vor and anal vor. Will we work any other kinds of vor in? Stay tuned to find out. So to recap, Daniel Ek makes money from musical artists, pays them as little as possible, and uses the money to invest in war. How many protest songs are making money for military equipment? How many beautiful, heartfelt, soul-wrenching pieces of music are making money to craft smarter, more deadly AI-powered weapons? The Joe Rogan deal. Hey, is now a good time to bring up Joe Rogan? The answer is no. It's never a good time to bring up Joe Rogan. For those of you who are lucky enough to not know who this is, he's one of the most popular podcasters in the world with a sit-down interview-style show in which he and a guest just kind of shoot the shit for an hour or whatever. Joe's always had a bit of a centrist libertarian streak, but people kind of dismissed it as harmless because he was a buffoon who never really threw his weight in any political discourse in any meaningful way. He's one of those guys that would like take a big hit off a blunt and say like, "Oh man, both sides are bad if you really think about it." And if he ever stepped in some like serious shit, it was always that he was like just asking questions. In 2020, Joe Rogan signed an exclusive deal with Spotify worth at least $200 million. A year later, he started spreading COVID misinformation, including the promotion of ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine, even when he himself got COVID and told people that that was how he was being treated. He spread a ton of vaccine skepticism and promoted conspiracy theories regarding the pandemic, platforming people like Dr. Robert Malone to his estimated 190 million listeners. Malone was a virologist who had been a prominent voice in the anti-vaccine movement and was banned from Twitter for spreading misinformation around COVID. And then, just before Election Day 2024...
An about-face from Joe Rogan just 3 months ago. One of the world's most popular podcasters thought RFK Jr. was the only option in the 2024 race. But now, on the eve of the election, Rogan formally endorsing Donald Trump. He announced that decision after his interview with billionaire and Trump ally Elon Musk. Rogan wrote in a post on X last night that Musk, quote, "makes what I think is the most compelling case for Trump you'll hear, and I will agree with him every step of the way."
Rogan endorsed now President Donald Trump, cementing himself as another rich, out-of-touch loser who is willing to throw his entire country under a bus just to get a little bit off his taxes. Dude is the perfect example of how money corrupts everything. But guess what? Spotify just signed another deal with him. They freaking love this stuff. Yeah! We refuse to let the music that we make help fund the retention of this man on the platform that hosts thousands of songs decrying people just like Rogan. And we would hope that anybody who cares about the message in their music does the same. Some artists already have, including Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, India Arie, and Deerhoof. It might not seem like a lot, but every little move helps, and we could turn this into a landslide. You, the listener, and you, the musician, can help make that happen. Fake bands, AI, and bots. When exactly the practice of hiring musicians to churn out tracks at high volumes for low or no royalties started is unclear, but there have been multiple sources suggesting that Spotify has directly commissioned artists to fill playlists with music that they pay a flat fee for and then never pay royalties for again. This is not dissimilar to the deal that we had with YouTube for the music we did for the YouTube Creator Library. And getting paid for library music can be a great way to make money as a musician. The issue arises when Spotify prioritizes this music in playlists. Playlists it then promotes over individual albums. People listen to the playlist, stream the music that was commissioned for a flat fee over music that someone made and could be paid royalties for, and musicians all over the world struggle harder to make ends meet, sometimes quitting music altogether. It's kind of ironic that Daniel was quoted as saying the cost to create is close to zero, when he himself knows exactly how much it costs to commission a musician to make library music for his platform. We guess when you've got billions of dollars, nothing really matters. Can you imagine what this dude listens to? What his relationship to art is? It must be absolutely tragic on all fronts. At this point though, the idea of paying an individual musician to make music is old news. What we need to do now is streamline the process, automate it. Take the annoying stuff out of it, like creativity, passion, and you know what? Let's just remove the human altogether. They're a liability. Enter, of course, AI music. AI music creation has admittedly improved a lot since it was first announced. In fact, it's improved enough to completely fool a lot of people. Even we got a little chuckle out of that obscurest vinyl YouTube channel with tracks like I Glued My Balls to My Butthole Again and You Look Like You Could Use a Fucking Lamp. Until we realized that not only were they AI, but they were on Spotify with like 6 times the monthly listeners that we had before we took our music down. And yes, the music is AI. The creator has been quoted as saying, it's helped them realize the creative vision they could never do before. But you know what? Fuck that excuse. If you use AI to make music, it's theft. The models were trained on theft. If you put that music on Spotify, it's theft. You're stealing royalties from real musicians. No argument. AI music is very easy to make, and it is absolutely flooding the market. Platforms like Deezer reported that 18% of their daily uploads are AI generated. That is 20,000 songs they are getting a day that are AI generated. As you've seen with the obscurest vinyl channel, these tracks can get significant streams, especially if they're playlisted and promoted by Spotify, which siphons royalties away from human artists. The example that has been most recently making headlines is The Velvet Sundown. This AI-generated folk rock band gained millions of streams on Spotify in weeks with AI-generated photos and no real-world presence. Rival platforms like Deezer flagged their music as 100% AI-generated. There are bands like Concubanas and Fantasia with elaborate backstories and images that at first glance make them look legitimate, also getting super popular. These bands are getting promoted and playlisted on Spotify, and it's getting harder and harder to avoid hearing AI music, especially if you're just a casual listener who puts the service on and doesn't curate their own listening. And these are just a few small examples. Forums dedicated to specific genres like r/real dubstep will regularly encounter playlists littered with AI-generated music. So why does this matter? Well, outside the financial issues of Spotify paying for robots to make music instead of humans, for us at least, it's about the purpose of art itself. Art transcends the limitations of language, serving as a powerful conduit for expressing the ineffable. It fosters profound connections, linking individuals to one another and unearthing latent concepts buried within the human psyche. Through its evocative power, art cultivates a deeper sense of a shared humanity, expanding our perspectives on political, philosophical, and personal realms, ultimately enriching our experience of what it means to be human. The emergence of AI-generated music fundamentally compromises the essence of artistic expression. It's a profound betrayal of music's inherent purpose. Discovering that a piece of music we've encountered was created by AI, regardless of its initial emotional impact, shatters its credibility. The absence of human authorship, of a human impulse to convey deeply felt emotions or vital messages to the world, renders the creation hollow. Without that genuine human connection, art ceases to exist. It becomes an empty facade, even less than just a product. It becomes, quite simply, nothing. Bot-driven playlists. Finally, let's talk about bot-driven playlists on Spotify. The way this works is someone creates vast numbers of fake Spotify accounts using stolen credentials with random nonsensical usernames. The bots are then programmed to log into these accounts and play specific songs or playlists on a loop. This can involve thousands of accounts on VPNs, streaming simultaneously from different IP addresses to mimic real user activity. Some botting services focus on creating botted playlists. These playlists often have generic titles, a high number of fake followers, and feature a mix of popular mainstream songs alongside the target tracks that the artists have paid to promote. The idea is to make the playlist appear legitimate to unsuspecting artists and listeners. The way this hurts the musician is that if your music gets added to one of these botted playlists, which is something you cannot control, you can get penalized. Spotify can shadow ban artists, making their music unsearchable or algorithmically invisible, remove tracks, or even ban accounts caught using bots. And that's fine, obviously, but because you can't control if you get put on a playlist created by and targeted by bots, you can have your entire catalog essentially disappeared for doing nothing wrong at all. This is all collateral, a price that the owner of the bots is willing to pay for financial gain and the manipulation of metrics on the platform. More often than not, the people we've talked to who have been victims of this, all independent artists who are putting as much of their hearts, time, and money into making music, are immediately considered guilty by Spotify and have to prove otherwise. We could talk more about Spotify's moderation of content on their platform or how they use customers' private data, but we don't think we need to in order to prove our point here. Spotify is a profit-first organization who views music as lubrication and a machine made to spit out billions of dollars for shareholders and Daniel Ek, who in turn invests his money in the machine of war. It doesn't care about your music, it doesn't care about any music. Music is a tool, an afterthought, a convenient fuel for an engine that spits out sounds in exchange for profits. That EP that you spent years working on is a sacrifice for the apparatus. And Spotify doesn't give a crap if it's something you poured your heart into or some AI or algorithmically generated slop that just happens to keep people listening to advertisements. They pay the worst rates in the industry and do everything they can to keep from having to pay even that. It might be convenient as a listener, and it might even make you proud as a musician to have your music on what was at some point considered the most prestigious and important streaming platform on earth. But all you're doing really is throwing a tiny splinter of kindling on a fire that runs on the hearts, minds, and souls of well-meaning musicians all over the world. Alternatives to Spotify. Okay, well, with all that, what are the alternatives? How can you still get the music you want and not feed this terrible machine? The number one way is to buy albums, EPs, tracks, and merch as directly from the artist as possible. Bandcamp is the number one way that we would suggest doing this. It's a huge collection of fantastic music that you own once you purchase it. A huge variety of genres are available, and many larger musicians have their releases available there too. They do streaming and downloading, and you can download in almost any format available, including FLAC, AIFFF, and WAV. From a streaming perspective, your mileage is going to vary depending on how you like the UI and other offerings the service provides. For instance, we quite like artist radio playlists, where a service will generate a playlist based on a song or artist. And we do appreciate a good curated playlist, especially for genres that we're interested in but don't know much about, like jazz. So let's talk about a few options in terms of how they pay artists and what their stance is on AI content. YouTube Music. We currently use YouTube Music. We got it for free alongside YouTube Premium subscription way back when it was called like YouTube Red or something. It has higher payouts than Spotify at a whopping 0.0071 per stream. It has Content ID for music and has stricter guidelines against mass-produced AI content for monetization. Apparently, their payouts could be highly variable and less predictable, and there are monetization eligibility hurdles for new artists. Tidal looks pretty good on paper. It uses a market share model of payment, averaging around 0.013 per stream. That's a little over a cent per stream. That's a lot less zeros before the actual money number. It prohibits using AI content for model training, but they haven't publicly announced a comprehensive system for identifying and labeling all AI-generated music. A slight con on this service for artists is that they ended their direct artist payouts program, instead using a Spotify-similar market share model, so individual payouts can be diluted. Qobuz, a French service, has a fully paid model with the highest disclosed per-stream payout, no ad-supported tier, high-res audio, and music downloads. It doesn't curate or promote AI content, and it's considering filters, though there might still be some AI content on the platform. This sounds great, right? But we've heard mixed reviews of the user experience, so please sound off in the comments if you have any thoughts. SoundCloud. My take? Fuck SoundCloud. They used to be something we used a lot, but they lost their footing in the streaming wars, and they tripped so hard that they never really regained it in a way that seems to make any sense for the musician or the casual listener. We don't trust them when it comes to AI training on your content, and we certainly don't trust them when it comes to AI music on their platform. They've also had a huge bot problem for years now that they haven't solved, and yeah, just in general, we do not trust SoundCloud. Apple Music. Apple Music uses a revenue model like Spotify, and our research suggested that it is possible to earn around 1 cent per stream, which is pretty good. Digging into it a little more, though, things get a little stupider. A listener's subscription plan affects how much you get per stream, as do the geographic origin of the streams. So places with a higher subscription fee, like US, Canada, Western Europe, those will earn you more per stream than regions with lower subscription fees. Spatial audio, something not a single one of us asked for in our listening experience when it comes to music, will offer higher stream payouts as well. So if you release your music in spatial audio, you'll get a little bonus. We assume this is because Apple is trying to make spatial audio a thing, and again, nobody asked for this. So with all that said, that 1 cent per stream is probably the highest amount someone might get, especially if their management had enough clout to negotiate that. What streaming service do you use? Leave a comment. Tell us what it is, what you like about it, and what you don't. I want to offer people alternatives, and empirical data is the best. Like we said, we use YouTube Music for now, but we've also decided to start a physical music collection and rip what we buy onto an offline device specifically for music. We've started with some of the classics of 90s and 2000s electronica, but we'll definitely branch out from there. Oh yeah, and we got the new Kesha album on CD, and it absolutely bangs. You should go check it out. All right, well, that's our video. We chose to take our music down from Spotify for these reasons, and we hope that if you've gotten this far, you might consider taking your music down from there as well. Don't delete your profile, just take the music down. And if you want to, upload one thing that explains why. You could do it in just the title of the piece of music and make it like howling sounds or noise. You could write a song about it, or you could just do a quick spoken word thing explaining it. Like we said at the start of this video, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music, for instance, have parent companies that are all contributing to inequality and the death of the planet in some way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean that we can't do something, even if it doesn't solve everything. As they say, perfect is the enemy of good. And as I say, Spotify is the enemy of music. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful day.